Guys, welcome to the Hero Nation podcast. Right now, starting right this second, how do you actually get motivated? Well, you can start getting motivated by listening to this podcast right here, right now. Listen to this. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hero Nation show, where business owners and entrepreneurs like you learn tools and tactics to live more epic lives. My name is John Rinehart, and today I am here with Brent Hicks. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, brother. Yeah, doing good.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So first topic. Ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So I want to know the best tools and tactics that you have for self-motivation. And then we'll switch that into a little bit later into motivation of employees and others. Because I think how you motivate yourself has a direct correlation to how you motivate others.
You know, I guess part of it, I don't know how to articulate part of it. Part of it's just an internal clock that I don't know. Maybe you're born with. Maybe it's over time that you have. For me, I wake up every morning like knowing I have something to do. I have a purpose. Like I don't have to punch a clock. I don't have to wait for someone to ask me to do something. I just know naturally, inherently, like I've just got to do something. And then the clock in my head is going off. And so whether it's, you know, building myself or learning or developing or financial or savings, it's just these various clocks that are going off. I mean, I motivate myself by reading a lot. I've been so indoctrinated or engulfed into podcasts lately. You know, those things motivate me. They inspire me because I'm constantly learning from other people and seeing what they've done and hearing about their struggles and how they overcame them. And that fires me up.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So was there ever a time in your life where you weren't motivated?
Sure. Yes.
So where's the transition point in between when you were motivated and then finally what motivated you?
Yeah, there was a moment that really young, I got pretty successful. And, you know, at 21, 22, I was making a lot of money. And
okay, so let's define a lot of money.
You know, back in 1993, 94, I was making 30 grand a month. Okay. So at 21, it's a lot of money, especially 25 years ago. Right. You know, the Bible says a fool and his money will soon part. And at that point, like I was a fool. I was making money and I was just going out and spending it, buying champagne and you know, living the life because I was just a young kid that just didn't have any experiences.
Okay, so but like, how did you get to there? Because so there's a whole group of people that wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I can totally relate. I was a millionaire in my teens. So how did you get the motivation to actually make that money, or did it just come naturally?
You know, as a kid, my parents taught me to be an entrepreneur. What they did was they instilled in me this work ethic, and they never gave me money, but they would always partner with me on things. And so like when I was a kid, if I wanted a color TV, like back then it was a 13-inch color TV, they were $250. They would tell me if I saved $125, they would cover the other $125. And so I would go figure out how to make $125, whether it was mowing people's lawns, or whether it was, you know, tilling their gardens, whether it was, you know, hauling dirt, it was, you know, selling baseball cards, whatever it was. I was always thinking of ways that I could earn and save money, and then I would get the reward from that. And so from an early age, I started to develop that, you know, that thirst for entrepreneurship and goal setting. And then, you know, I moved here. I dropped out of college. I moved to Dallas. I was bartending.
Did you ever finish college?
No.
Never finished
Never
college.
finished. No,
nice.
No. I went back and then it just wasn't for me.
Okay, so you're doing bartending.
I was bartending, and then a buddy of mine owned a roofing company. I started working for him. And again, as a kid, which here I'm 19 or 20 years old, so I'm still a kid. But I was always used to banging on doors. Like I was the kid that would go sell every candy bar. I would sell everything. And I'd just get my mom to drop me off at neighborhoods when I was young. I remember the first experiences, there was those big candy bars and they were $1.50 each. And that one year, the first prize was $300. So every weekend I would have my mom drop me off at a neighborhood and I would have her pick me up 4 or 5 hours later, and I'd knock every door in that neighborhood, getting people signed up to buy candy bars.
So you're either going to become an entrepreneur or a vacuum salesman when you grew up, one of the two.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? It could have been a vacuum salesman.
You might have missed your calling, you know?
Kirby's, they're awesome. At the end of that contest, there was a girl whose dad owned the grocery store that was local, and I got second place next to her, and she just had set up a desk there, or not a desk, but a table selling these candy bars. And it pissed me off because I went and hustled and I got second place and I only got $150. Well, something interesting happened at the end of that candy bar sale. They took all the leftover candy bars that they didn't sell and they marked them down from $1.50 to 50 cents and sold them to the students. And so I was like, I can buy these things for 50 cents and then sell them for $1.50. So the next year I just saved my money. When they had their fire sale, I bought all the inventory, and then I went and knocked doors and I had the candy bars on hand, sold them for $1.50 each, and probably made like $500. So I just
opportunity, man.
Yeah. And so when I was 19, my friend had a roofing company. I started banging on doors, and there had been a hailstorm. I knocked on doors. I'd get someone that was interested, or they would let me replace the roof, right? It's insurance that's covering it. My goal was to stick a sign in their front yard that day, and then I'd go to the next door neighbor's house, and I'd say, oh, by the way, John next door, do you know Mary on the other side? I'm doing their roof. And then I just started leveraging, their neighbors and fear of loss, and, use their credibility for my credibility. So it wasn't difficult for me to start to dominate these neighborhoods that, had hail damage, because I'd just go bang on any door.
Nice. I don't know if I'd ever told you I did that as well. I knocked on doors. I didn't do roofs. I was selling Dish Network and DirecTV in Denver, Colorado. That was what I did right before my wife and I got married.
That's awesome.
It was horrible.
It's a hard thing.
No. What was interesting is I had all the scripts down. I was good at that part. I scared the crap out of people. They would see me at the door. You don't understand. I'm 6'7". They would see me at the door and they were like, no. The answer is I would do the whole, I'd step down 2 steps, get out my little board and be like, oh yeah, I'm checking things off, and then turn back around so they could see me. I'd do all that. I literally had people open doors, see me, one person screamed, stumbled back, and slammed the door. It was the most awesome thing ever. My supervisors were watching me and they were like, I don't know what to do with you. Okay, so I got a question for you. So it sounds like from the very beginning, you were super motivated by kind of the reward centers of your brain, just kind of going I'm selling. Do you think that actually ended up helping you in the long run, or did that end up actually causing interesting points in your life where you're kind of you're completely motivated by kind of the next sale, and so it made it super hard to rest? It's almost like the sales high, right? Where you make the biggest sale, the best sale, and the next thing you know, you're freaking depressed and you're out on the floor and you're just what else
I think
is
it's
there
a
in
blessing
life?
and a curse, right? I mean, it's a blessing because I've always been goal oriented, right? I've always been one to set myself goals and then pursue those goals and then set myself a reward, right? I think you've got to earn, save, reward, right? I think that's just key. And so I would always earn, then I would save, then I would hit my savings goal and I reward myself. But it has been a curse. I'm always driving for that thing. And so many times in life and during the day, if I find this void of 5 or 10 minutes and I feel like I'm not doing something productive, then I'm like, what the fuck, man? I'm not being productive, and it drives me nuts. And so, yes, the story in my head goes off.
What am I doing? Why am I actually
January
here?
and February are always slower, and so those times of year can get a little more depressive. Or my wife, I'm panicking, holy shit, we're not generating as much volume or revenue or whatever it is. And every year in January, she just reminds me, it's this is every year. You should be accustomed to this.
So there is some part of that where your identity ends up getting hooked to
100%,
to
absolutely.
that part of you, which is just in order to feel almost.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll ever retire, right? Truly retire, because I actually have enjoyment and fulfillment tied. I've tied this or wrapped this to somehow being productive and getting things done. And so I don't know how I'm going to deconstruct that at some point to be able to just relax and be satisfied. And maybe I don't want to, right? I go back and forth with it. So again, it's a blessing and a curse.
Right. When you kind of lost all your money, okay, was there like, did that change? Did it change from being like a reward center to being almost like a fear center?
Sure. It was an epiphany. Waking up one morning and I didn't have enough money. Well, I had enough money to pay my rent for one more month. I had no income coming in. And, at that point I had to take the entrepreneurial that I thought I had become, and I had to swallow my pride, swallow my ego, and go back to what I knew I could generate cash, and that was bartending. And that fear has been with me ever since then, right? Because as I've gotten older, we all have stories in our head, and what I've realized is the story in my head was I was going to end up broke and a failure, right? I was a college dropout. And when I moved to Texas, all my fraternity brothers were telling me that I was going to be eating Spam, and, I didn't grow up with money. And so that was the story I would tell myself. And when I started getting successful, it was almost like, whose life is this? This isn't mine. This is surreal. And at some point, I'm going to end up broke and a failure.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to run from that. And that point, that trigger point that day of realizing that, I told myself when I moved out of my parents' house that I was never going to move back into their house. That was a driver. That was a motivator. My brothers had done that multiple times, and I wanted to be independent. I never wanted to have to rely on my parents again, and I wanted that independence. So, I used both of those things. But yes, that became part of my internal story, and now I try to remind myself that that's just a story in my head, and I have to change the story. But it's definitely driven me.
So do you think those are actually like the best ways of motivation, or do you think they're because like, okay, let's take like a common thread that I see through sales culture is that we're either the story is like, I'm either running away from pain or towards pleasure. These are the two basic philosophies. That's actually a single philosophy, but two, they call them like the two, main causes of motivation. Do you think that there are better motivators?
I don't know. I think fear is probably one of the best motivators there is, right? I mean, pleasure is amazing. And I think balancing between the two, in my mind, would probably be optimal.
Would you consider like love a motivator, or would you consider? I guess love is an interesting like twist, right? Because love could either be a fear, or It could be a pleasure center, right? I am loved, therefore I do this. But then that twists into also a fear twist of, if I don't do this, am I loved, right? And so that turns into another like fear versus pleasure.
Well, then
so
I think love turns into responsibility. So much of what I do is based off of responsibility as well. Like as we become more responsible. We have more people that we're responsible for, and that becomes a big driver, right? I mean, every day I wake up and it's not how much money I'm putting in my checking and savings account or how much money I'm putting aside. It's also the fear, also the responsibility of knowing that I have a lot of people whose lives are dependent on me, and so that gets me up in the morning as well, right? It's
so because what you're saying is, in a lot of ways, that responsibility is a fancy man's way of saying I'm scared.
Well, and it's also love, right?
Fear, right?
And it's also doing it based off of love. I am driving towards something and providing and doing things and sacrificing because I love somebody and because I want to do those things and be able to provide those things for them. Does that make sense?
It does. But but you see how like it almost like every turn it keeps like swinging back to, is it love or is it fear? Is it fear of loss, or is it it's like it keeps coming back to this thing.
In my psyche, there's definitely a lot of fear.
So how is that played out in, like, if we're getting personal, how is that like played out in your life? How's it played out in your marriage or with your family or partners and stuff like that? Because that seeps through.
Sure. look, there's the pros and the cons. There's the good and the bad. I think my fear or my drive, my ambition keeps me preoccupied sometimes, right? Where sometimes I'm not as present as what I need to be in those moments. But it also has built this ability to not do as I say, not as I do, right? My nieces and my nephews and the people around me, like I can teach them valuable lessons and things that I can help to inspire and motivate them. And then that's part of my drive too, right? I wanted to, growing up in middle class and with the hope to be wealthy was also to try to, to be the patriarch of the family, so to speak, right? I wanted to be able to build this legacy that could transcend me and my wife, like, to have been the rock or the pillar that helped to change the future of my family's, and that's also something that I drive towards. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Kind of. So I think what I'm looking for is like specifically, are there times where you've sat there and you've noticed, like, fuck, this way of living in my business entrepreneurial world, like my way of motivating myself, my way of motivating my employees and stuff like that, does not work for motivating my wife or motivating
it absolutely doesn't fucking work, man. Come on, man. And it doesn't always work for motivating my employees, right? I mean, the way that I think isn't the way that they think. And so that's always a constant battle, right? Because you're trying to get in the psyche and understand my mind works this way, and this is what drives me and motivates me, but it's not everybody. I mean, I have everybody on my team do disc profiles and try to understand who they are. That doesn't mean that I always do it right. A lot of times I'm still trying to dangle a carrot because I think they're going to run for the carrot. But what they really wanted was love, right? They wanted to feel part of something. They wanted to feel like their voice was heard. And so, it's a constant struggle, and it's a constant balance between giving people a voice and an opinion and getting them bought into things, but also driving and motivating, inspiring, and getting the right dynamics where you have enough drivers and enough glue. It's trying to figure out what everybody's love languages are, all while dealing with the day-to-day shit that happens.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you make, so, let's say your base motivation is fear. Like, it's just fear. Like reward centers does nothing for you. Maybe you grew up in an extremely abusive family and stuff like that, and so reward centers don't work. But you're running a company, and you have all these employees that their basis of understanding is basically reward. Their basis of motivation is reward. How do you make the bridge in between? This is what's in my head, right? This is how I am motivated, and how to actually connect with those people on not just an individual basis, but on a company-wide basis. Because your culture reflects who you are,
sure,
in a lot of ways.
And so I'm always trying to get people bought into why we exist, who we are, what our vision is. And then what I've learned over time is I have to utilize my other generals. I have to utilize the other people in my office to fill the blind spots, to fill the voids. Because what I've really learned here, at least in the last couple of years, I've got a lot of fucking blind spots, right? And as being the driver of a business, like, I just fucking drive. And so a lot of times I'm doing 150 miles an hour down the interstate and didn't see that somebody's got a flat tire. And so I'm like, hey, let me know where my blind spots are and tell me what I'm missing. But also, don't wait for me to drive and do everything. Like, you guys have to own this piece. Here's the shit that you need to take care of, right? And here's the things that I'm not good at. I want you to just take it and run with it and just own it, right? And so own doing these events and own doing these things and own dropping gifts off at people's desk. And when you see that they're down, you've got their fucking favorite candy sitting there in your box in your drawer, and you whip out Kit Kat candy bars because you see that they're having a bad day. Like, help to fill some of those voids and have people in the office that have a sense other people, right? And I can feel people's energy, and I can sense it. I have empathy, but I also am such a driver that sometimes I'm literally sprinting from my office to the bathroom and back, because I'm thinking I don't want to waste 45 seconds. Like, how do I collapse 45 seconds into 30 seconds because I can get 15 more seconds worth of shit done?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So in essence, what you're basically saying is utilize people who have different character traits other than yourself, right? That can actually basically become the chinks in your armor that allow you to move through life more smoothly without getting snagged.
Yeah, like, I mean, I can't be the business, right? I mean, the business has to not be me. It has to be a group. It has to be us.
So then I come back to, how do you connect with the people that connect differently than you, right? So in a diverse team, you have, all right, we're going to use DISC. We have high Ds, we have high Is, high S's, high C's, and you need each one of those people to be in connection with you. But that also means that they have to allow you to be the driver, and yet you also have to be able to connect with each one of those people on an almost an individual basis, in order for them to fill the blind spots in you. Because you talked about, like, you have your generals, your people that are kind of surrounding you. How do you connect with those people and still make sure that they are fulfilled, so that they actually take care of your other people?
So we try to do autopsies and have open and real dialogue, right? So for me, I've always, open and real just means, like, let's just be open and real. You got something to say it. I'm not going to get pissed off. There's no greed. There's no fear. No, there's no ego. Like, just tell me what's on your mind.
So where does that circle lie? Is that with everybody in the entire business, or is that with just a certain group?
Absolutely. Like, let's not be defensive. Let's listen to what someone's saying and why they're saying it, and try to understand what it is. And then I have to be the first person to admit, like, okay, hey, I'll take responsibility for this. Like, I fucked up. And, I learned something years ago, and it was about, if you love somebody, sometimes you have to say you're sorry, even though you're right? Sometimes our ego can drive so many decisions and so many things, and we want to be right so much that we become blinded by being, by just being righteous instead of listening. And so sometimes we have to say we're sorry, even though we know we're right. And so in group settings or in autopsies, like, I want to try to find my flaws, and I'm the first one to say, hey, here's something I messed up on. Here's something that I'm going to take the blame for, to try to open up the dialogue, to allow people to communicate. And if I try to pull things out of them, and then I'll say, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm sorry. That's a blind spot. I appreciate you letting me know that. Not taking a defensive posture. Does it always work? No. Sometimes people just hold on to things and they still don't feel like they can say it, right? But I try to disarm them as much as I possibly can, and create an environment that that anybody can talk. We spend a lot of time trying to build a meritocracy. And, I'm a firm believer in a meritocracy. Like, anyone from any place can do anything. And in an organization, it doesn't matter what your job is. If you started off as a janitor and you have an idea, so an idea meritocracy, where any idea can come up from anyone. And if it's a good idea, then we can implement that idea. It doesn't have to come from the top down. It doesn't have to come from the person, right? And so we've spent time trying to build an idea meritocracy, and then an ideal meritocracy, where ideals and principles set forth and can live beyond us.
So my question for everybody else is, what is your visualization? What is your motivation? What are you going to do? What goals do you have? What goals do you not have? Right? What goals do you have that you actually don't know that you have, but you actually are hitting your goals perfectly every day? I want you to put them in the comments below and let us know what you think. Guys, as always, Hero Nation is brought to you by Hero Nation Fuel. If you haven't been part of Hero Nation Fuel, please go ahead, sign up, get in there. There's a 30-day back guarantee. guys, if you want to have conversations like this, you want to have deep conversations, you want to be part of a community that actually wants to bring you forward, help you leapfrog years ahead in your business and your personal life, you need to get in there. You need to get in there today. Go ahead, go to theheronation.com and go ahead and sign up. Dude, thank you so much for coming. Dude, it's been awesome. Hell yeah. All right, so guys, we'll see you again next time. Be your own hero.